Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 5 of season 2 of Maniacs. Today we are interviewing Carol. Carol was a 29-year member of World Harvest Church. She was a dancer on the dance team that used to exist at World Harvest called Remnant. She was a choreographer for them and also became a dance teacher. She was a lead performer for productions like The Master's Welcome. She was a youth group frontline singer, and she was also a former close or best friend of Ashton Parsley and spent a lot of time with the Parsleys, not only at World Harvest, but also in their home. So please help me welcome Carol. Hi, Carol. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Welcome to Megamaniacs. How's your day going so far?
Oh, it's going great. Been good so
Good.
far.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're smiling and I think both of us probably have pretty upbeat personalities and like to smile and laugh and have a good time. But I'm not going to say too much about, why you're doing the podcast because I want to ask you that. But I want to, give a trigger warning that many of the things that we're going to be talking about and that people may hear that this could be very triggering to them. And I also want to say that unfortunately, we've just got a long laundry list of things that we're going to be talking about because of the many, many negative experiences that you had while you were there for, 29 years. And the things that you also were a part of and that you witnessed while there. And I, I know I told you this, but I appreciate you and your courage to come on the podcast and discuss a lot of these things because it truly is heartbreaking, is really the only way to describe it. Um, so Carol, why don't you just to kind of open up the episode and just tell me and tell the viewers why you decided that you wanted to be interviewed on Megamaniacs.
Okay. Well, the very first thing and the most important thing would be healing. It's for healing for myself, for everyone involved, even the leadership and congregation, everyone. Healing and um, for past victims, for present victims, and for future victims that can stumble upon this video and maybe some of the things that happened to me happen to them or will happen to them, and they can see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And it's also to expose the stronghold that I believe is at work in that place. And even if it's at my own expense, the stronghold that even I may have been working for on the wrong side of things, even if I have to expose my own self. But there is a stronghold in that place. And those were my motives: healing past, present, future victims, and the stronghold to expose it.
Absolutely. And I mean, and you and I had a very lengthy, conversation about a week ago, almost 4 hours. And even, some of the things that we're going to be discussing are not necessarily painting you in the best light either, right? And and I think that's, sort of what you're meaning by your own expense is that there were a lot of things that happened there and probably are still happening there. And we know that they were occurring before, and so being able to shed some light on those things that I think when people are ashamed or they feel like they're complicit in things, or that they are just embarrassed to share that, that that binds, to that place, and can cause people to not speak up because they're worried about what it's going to make them look like. So I appreciate that you're being obedient and saying that it's time to get some healing and to move forward and help others move forward, hopefully, as well.
Yes.
So there's not going to really be any, chronological order to a lot of this. I want it to be kind of more conversational, but as you
Mhm.
know, there's many questions that I have to kind of explain your experience while you were there. So why don't we start with this question, which is, what was the nature of your relationship with the Parsleys, and did it kind of evolve over time?
Yes, it did. I was just growing up there, being a member in a church that big. You don't know your pastor, you don't know his family, you know what you see, but if you're not doing something close with them, you have no idea. So it wasn't until I was an adult, maybe 2015, 16, like around that time, probably, I started to get really, really close with Ashton. And we were always cool. We had a lot of mutual friends in high school and we kind of hang out in the same circles, but I never knew her parents. They were my pastors. I didn't know them as my friends' parents. And then when I started spending a lot of time with her, and that's when they just became my friends' parents. They weren't, just my pastors, but I started going to their house. I mean, I was at their house every week. I was at her house every week. I was like family, to them. And I was always welcome. I knew the codes. I knew where she kept her spare key. I would sometimes come there before she had came back from somewhere and I'm like, "Hey, I'm here." And she's like, "Oh, I'm not there yet. Go on in, make yourself at home." That type of a friendship where we were just like family. But I will say with them, it's that side. It's not like they came to my house. It's not like it was bad. It's all now I'm more than welcome there. And so yeah, it was kind of just like a close friend, family member type of a feeling that it ended up becoming.
Okay. So when you think about your relationship as a whole with them, I mean, are there ever times where you have memories that cause you to like smile and say, "Oh, that was like a great time or a great day or great experience with them," or is it kind of overwhelmingly more negative? Not that you didn't have positive experiences, but that the negative kind of overshadows.
No, I genuinely enjoyed our weekly visits. I mean, like almost every Monday night or Tuesday night going over there and spending time with her. We had a great friendship and I enjoyed being around her. And it was more her than it was her. Once they got involved, that is when I became uncomfortable because I had never been
They
around
as in
her
they as in
parents.
her parents.
Yes, Rod and
Okay.
Joni. Like, once I started going to their house, which we moved the hangouts started moving from her house to, well, I'm at my dad's. And I'm like, oh, so we're hanging out over there. And towards the end of it, everything was over there. We did everything at her parents' house. So that was when I was uncomfortable, but I did still enjoy my time with her and our friendship. So there
Was
were,
there, I mean, was there things that specifically happened that made you feel uncomfortable while you were there?
yeah, the conversation, some of the
Okay.
jokes, some of the humor is just not what you would think a general of the faith, a pastor is talking, is joking like. And I mean, I grew up in my household. you had to turn the channel if you're watching something inappropriate. And most of the families, all my friends growing up there, that's how their parents were too. You don't cuss, I dare you to cuss around my mom. I dare you to have something on in the room. She will come in the room and be like, "What are you watching?" Let alone her laughing at it. But we were watching like inappropriate stuff, and I'm like, we're gonna watch this with pastor? Like, that's very weird. That's
Mhm.
uncomfortable to me. But anything that was the slightest bit of a sexual humor or he's the first one cackling. He just thinks it's so funny. And I'm like, I feel uncomfortable because you're my pastor, because you're her parent. And what I'm used to is you turn that stuff off. You don't think that that stuff is funny. And he found anything that was nasty or perverted, he found it funny. And that bothered me. That made me uncomfortable.
Mhm. So you're talking about, things that you would see on TV that
Stuff that
that
we
you were
watch.
even shocked that were there. Were you ever involved in situations where it just wasn't that things were being laughed at on television, but that they were actually being said by him? And
Yeah,
and do you have any examples of that?
the most uncomfortable statement that he's ever said around me. We were all in the kitchen, and it was Austin, Joni, Rod, and Ashton, and me and my best friend, Amaris. And we were all in the kitchen. I don't know how it came up, but somehow Austin and Rod were joking about Ashton's, like, somehow it came up. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, it's like a stinky Ashton stinky or something. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, I've been to a lot of places, been around a lot of people that have never even opened a Bible, and they wouldn't joke like that, and they wouldn't find that funny. And I can't remember her countenance. I think she was just kind of like, whatever, and they weren't doing it to us, like, yeah, guys, but they were saying it. And it was like a little, kind of felt like an inside joke, but it was being said, and they were laughing about it. And I thought, this is making me very uncomfortable.
Yeah. I mean, it's uncomfortable even hearing you say it to me, and I wasn't there. But it didn't seem like it was overly concerning to Ashton, or do you think that she was just kind of laughing it off as
Can't
like,
remember her laughing, but she was like nonchalant, she was unbothered by it. And it just seemed like another day, whatever. They're just joking
so something
around.
that she'd heard before and
Yeah,
was just
I think
like,
she was shocked at all. No.
yeah. So what about, I mean, and I don't know that we have to spend like a ton of time on this question specifically, but was there any other behaviors that you noticed that would be completely contrary to how the Parsleys would behave when they were at church? Or if there were other, other people around, like a mixed crowd of people?
I think they were a lot more relaxed. If you get my drift, I felt at times very uncomfortable because I felt like some of the, let me word this right. Some people were maybe under the influence relaxed, like a little too relaxed, a little too,
Okay.
I'd never seen them like that. And you reason away, they're in their home, it's Monday night, it's whatever, everybody's just chilling. But slurred speech and from more than one person in the home, I'm not pointing fingers at one. It was more than one that I felt that from. And that was odd behavior to me, seeing them that laid back. Usually they can be a little more uptight and like, looking at making sure everything's right. They kind of have that type of a behavior to them. So to see them just like not caring about any, just kind of like that. And that was weird. I've never seen them like that with other people, like around other people.
Mhm.
Usually they're looking around. There was even a time that I was maybe there for like a couple hours, and he came downstairs, and we were in the living room area
Yes, and
watching.
Rod came
Rod,
downstairs. Okay.
Rod came downstairs and he turned the corner. And so I just saw like the first part of his face. And he kind of looked like he was like growling, like a grimace almost, like he just had like a mug on his face, like he was pissed. And, he just turned the corner. And I remember being like, "Ooh," like it looked like he was going to just start going off or something. But then he saw us, me and my best friend and Ashton sitting there. And he's like, "Girls, I didn't know you were here." And we were like, "Hi." And that shocked me because growing up there, I'm like, I thought you know everything. You couldn't feel us in here. You didn't know. The Holy Spirit didn't tell you I was down here hanging out. Nothing warned you. That was weird to see him like in my eyes at the time. I'm like, are you off your game? Kind of, because
Mhm.
they just seem
Okay.
like they know everything. You can't get nothing by them. And he didn't even know you were in his house. And I thought, well, that's how you look walking around your house in the middle of the night. That's the expression, that's your countenance, the way you carry yourself. And you changed everything once you saw I was sitting there. Now you change, oh, but that also made me uncomfortable. And on that same evening, uh, we were getting ready to leave, and Joni and Rod were talking to me and Amaris, and Ashton had already gone upstairs. And we just were talking, and then he's sitting in his, they have this, I don't know if they still do, but there was a rocking chair in the kitchen. He's sitting in the rocking chair, and they're just talking to us, and it's like 11 o'clock. It's getting later. Like I have to work in the morning. Like I had a great time, but I'm ready to go home. We got to drive kind of far. We're out in the middle of nowhere and we're ready to go. And he keeps saying, "Sit down. Oh my goodness, girls, sit down." And I couldn't. Everything in me was like, I felt so uncomfortable. I felt like I wasn't safe. Everything in me was telling me I wasn't, but my brain was like, "You are at your pastor's house. Like, you are
Hmm.
safe. You are good. Take a seat. Listen. Like, go ahead, have a seat. Just chill. You're still going to be here for a few minutes. You guys are still talking." No, everything in me. And not only me, but my best friend. She was closer to the door than I was. And she said she felt the same way. She didn't sit down. We didn't come closer to the kitchen. It was as if I wanted to get out of there. And that's not how I felt the whole night. It just all of a sudden it really came over me, especially with Ashton leaving. It was just like, what's going on? They are turning all the lights out. It was dark in there. There were barely any lights on. And I'm just like, I mean, it's 11 o'clock. They were going to bed too, but still just the way that the atmosphere felt. I felt that it shifted. I felt uncomfortable. All the while he continued probably 3 times to say, "Sit down, relax, have a seat." I felt very uncomfortable. I felt as though they both seemed to be very relaxed and not really, I don't know what we were talking about, not really making a lot of sense, just rambling. And I just wanted to go home, and I felt
Get
very
out of there.
uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So you said that you felt much more comfortable when you were just hanging out at Ashton's residence. I mean, when you were hanging out there and you felt comfortable, what was like a normal like hangout evening for you guys?
We would always usually stop at the Kroger by her house. We'd pick up snacks, we'd pick up wine, we'd go over there and snack and watch TV, and we would just chill. Sometimes it would just be me and her, sometimes it would be me, her, and Amaris, but most of the time it was just the two of us, and we would, and that another thing, when I first came over there, there was a camera right above her cabinet. She has an open floor plan, so her
At
kitchen,
Ashton's house, you mean?
house,
Okay.
very first time going to her house, when I walked in, I immediately saw this camera. So I jokingly was like, "Hi, Pastor," because I just knew, I'm like, oh, he's got a camera for sure. That's him. And she laughed. And almost every time we came over there, I did that. I waved to the camera and I would say, hi to him. And not once did she say, that's not my dad in there. I hope you know, like, that's my security camera. But I always made the joke. Me and Amherst both would make it, and we'd wave to the camera and jokingly, like, and I felt kind of uncomfortable because we were drinking. And I never had a personal one-on-one with Rod and Carol conversation about alcohol. I don't know how Rodney Lee Parsley feels about alcohol, but Pastor Rod Parsley, it doesn't touch his lips. So I would assume he wouldn't want it touching his daughters, along with other congregants in his church who are active, to be sitting around and drinking. I thought for sure he was going to come busting in, like, what are you doing? Or she texts me, like, we can't drink there anymore. My dad said that's not cool. Or I'm kind of waiting for that, like, where's that authoritative figure that you present yourself as on the platform to come down and tell us, hey, girls, we're Nazarites. It doesn't touch our lips, right? No, he's allegedly watching. I mean, I was never corrected on that. I have no clue where that camera came from. I made my jokes and they were never corrected. So I just assumed. And those were things that definitely made me uncomfortable drinking there, assuming he was watching and aware.
Mhm. Okay. So drinking was like and I don't want to say normal, but when you would hang out with Ashton, if you were at her house, there were times that you were drinking together, and that's your experience. There were times that you guys were going out to bars and drinking there. So at
Yeah.
least we know from her stance that her viewpoint against alcohol may not have been shared with her father, but that
Yeah.
there's a 99.9% chance that he was also aware that she was engaging in this behavior and she continued to do so.
Yeah.
Is
And
that what
maybe
you're
that's
saying?
why my hangouts moved to their house, because we never drank at the Parsleys. I never saw wine, I never saw alcohol. So maybe that could be a reason why he thought, all right, now you need to come hang out over here. That's a possibility. But we only drank at her house, not
Okay.
at the Parsleys residence.
Did you ever do drugs?
No.
Okay. Um, so I guess you kind of, I was going to ask you if you knew for a fact, that Rod was aware of the behavior that you guys were engaging in with Ashton.
Yeah.
And you said you believe that he was aware, correct?
Yeah. Yes, I
Okay.
do.
Okay. Um, So I know that you've seen a lot of the episodes of the podcast season one, and then obviously we're doing interviews now. And based on our conversation, there's sort of a list of questions, and because I'm trying to get better at my interviewing skills, I'm trying to stay kind of on track with all of this. But again, I know that we're going to kind of jump all over the place because your experiences there with the Parsleys in particular, but just as World Harvest as a whole, because you were there so long, you were involved in the youth group, you were involved in all of the productions. There's just a lot of different areas that we're talking about, and I don't want it to seem that it's bouncing around, but it probably is going to be. It's probably going to be bouncing around a little bit. Um, so, in speaking of your time, with the Parsleys, other than the jokes that were more sexual in nature, that you heard with your own ears, did you ever hear the Parsleys joking about how much money they made from the church, or anything about ministry as a whole, or kind of how they viewed their position while they were at church and then how they viewed themselves outside of there?
I wouldn't know about Rod or Joni, but I know that Ashton kind of always, I mean, she never, we knew that's where she got her money from, but she never said, oh, you make a lot of money when you do ministry. But she always talked about how much money she had. She would make jokes. I remember a time we were all at Applebee's and we all like were on our phones and she's like, oh, look at all your little cheap phones. My phone's way better. You know,
Mhm.
it always, she always had that air. And like, I remember her making that comment. And I'm like, what? You know, but comments, just comments like that, that,
Mhm.
oh, you're poor, I'm rich, you don't have anything, not just to me, but just in general. That was the humor that was meant to be the punchline, like I've got it and you don't, kind of, which would be from ministry, is how she got it. But
Mhm.
I've never heard Rod say anything though.
So with her, I mean, did you find it kind of pleasing to her to make other people feel bad about themselves?
Oh yes, definitely, definitely.
Did anyone ever treat her like do the same thing back to her to try to make her feel that way?
I never saw that.
You
No.
never saw that. So you just saw that it was kind of her making comments and the friend group, I mean, was anyone ever like really hurt or offended or did you just kind of accept that that was her personality?
The majority of the people that were there in that friend group also went to the school. So they're around her more than I was at the time. You're just used to it. And everybody, I couldn't tell who's hurt, who's upset. Nobody moves or says anything. Nobody laughs. Everybody's just, that's how it is with any of the inappropriate comments or things that are done. Everybody just freezes. So I
Yeah.
don't know what they think. They may think nothing's wrong with it. It's funny. I don't know. Nobody responds, and everyone just doesn't know what to do or say.
Mhm. So did you feel, I mean, did you feel like she was a true friend or like did you feel manipulated to be friends with her or was there a time, you know, because you guys knew, I mean, you may have not been best friends, but you knew of each other for a long time, you know, did you see sides that of her specifically that you had love for and kind of made excuses for the other stuff or I mean how was that?
Yes, I definitely made excuses because I just would say, same that I would say about Rod, you know how she is, you know how he is. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that that's not your friend or that you still can't love her. And as far as feeling like manipulated to be your friend, I don't feel that way because I was there for so long and we were cool, but we never had a close friendship. And then when I started doing certain things, then I felt it was organic on my part. Hers, I don't know if it was calculated, you know, if she felt like she needed to be my friend to, for whatever reason, I didn't feel that way. I felt like it was organic. We had a lot of mutual things, mutual interests, things that we both loved, things, I mean, we were just two young adult women that loved some of the same stuff, that grew up in the same place. We had a lot in common. So I didn't feel that we had to like conjure up a connection or a friendship. It was already there. And it all felt very natural to me. So yeah, anytime I received a text from her, she reached out to me, I never felt like it was manipulation. I definitely felt like we just had a bond and we were friends.
Hmm.
And towards the end of our friendship, I definitely felt like it might have been a little manipulative because if things happened in the church or there were situations, she would make sure to meet with us, not a meeting, but she'd be like, oh, let's all go out to eat. And we're like, oh, okay, well, so and so. She's like, no, this person can't come, that person can't, like, just, and it would be so important, like who was there, who wasn't there. And usually it was never like that. And it would just so happen at that dinner, she would have to tell us something. She's like, oh, yeah, by the way, I just want to let you guys know. And that's when I'd start to feel like, is this the message you want us to then tell other people? You know, like
Mm,
this is what's really going on. They're this, that's that. And we're like, oh, we don't really care about any of this. We didn't ask, we didn't hear, we didn't know. But she's like, I just want to let you know. And it started to get like that with several situations that she would bring to us. And then we'd go right back. Like we wouldn't talk about church. Like we'd go back to just hanging out, just being friends. And I'd be like, wow, that was weird. But she really, made sure to pause. I have to do this though. Like now we're having a meeting. Like now I'm Ashton, that's from World
that's
Harvest. And
almost
I've got
like damage control kind of,
yeah, damage. Yeah.
if and when you hear about this, like I've already
Mhm.
expressed to you
Yes. Definitely
what
started to
our
feel like,
version of events are. Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
which made me in those moments, I'm like, everything is smooth. And then there's a little glitch. And I'm like, okay. And then we go back to being smooth. Those glitches started happening a lot. And it made me
Okay.
then question, is this organic? Is this a true bond? On my end, yes. But was that what this is?
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah.
So did you, in the time that you spent with her, I mean, I think we've already kind of established that there was definitely double standards, at least for her specifically, than for anybody else. And those, were clearly even my experiences, and I didn't have, a friendship outside of work with her. It was just strictly the things that were happening at work. But from your perspective, did you notice like an overwhelming sense of, if Ashton does this, then it's, going to be okay and get covered up. But if somebody else does it, or if I do it, or that there's a whole different repercussion for it.
Yes. And not just with her, but she's a great example of that. That if she does something, she's not going to get in, I don't want to say trouble, but in the same treatment. Let's say she was involved with something with me and we got in trouble. My trouble is not her trouble. Mine, it's going to look like I may not even be allowed to set foot on the premises. I may not be allowed, it could be from anything, but hers would be she's going to carry right on. And I saw that with not just her, but multiple people, that not everyone, but certain people, because then you'd see some people that are doing behaviors and they're drug out and kicked out and treated like, don't talk to them. Oh, did you hear what they did? But other people,
Would tell you
they're not.
not to
They're
talk to
elevated.
people.
Oh,
Sorry,
yes.
they would tell you not to talk to people,
Oh,
or be friends
if
with people.
somebody has left there, they would, I mean, back to being a teenager, if a youth pastor has left, which there was about 5 or 6 of them, they could never keep one. They're leaving, they're coming, they're going, we don't know what's going on. Somebody's going to come in and say, they're gone, don't talk to them, don't reach out to them.
Mm,
Same with a old dance instructor, Miss, she was another one. Oh, I don't know if I can say her name. She didn't do
we
nothing,
can beep
but
it. We can beep
but
it.
but with her, it was Elder Canfield told us. He came and had a meeting with all of the students on this dance team and said, she's gone now. So and so's taking over. Don't contact her. Don't reach out to her. Just let it go. Same with a previous elder. I was in a meeting about that. Don't contact him. He's now gone. I mean, it was several people in the meeting. Nobody knows what happened. Nobody knows what's going on, but we're not to have any contact with people that are no longer there anymore, unless, they left and it's blessed and it's all good. But if something happened, we can't then talk to them. They don't want their side of the story to get to us. They don't want any of that going on. So, no, you cannot communicate with people that are no longer at the ministry.
Hmm. So did
Yeah.
you were the dance instructor that you're talking about, because I know that you were on the dance team, and I don't know if she was your instructor or not, but did you have a personal relationship with her where you ever found out why she left so abruptly, or did you never get an answer?
Well, there were two dance instructors that left
Oh,
abruptly
okay.
that I
I
was
didn't
close
realize
with.
that.
The one
Okay.
that I was just now referring to, I wasn't as close with her, but in the time that she was there, yes, we got close, but I didn't know the details about that. As far as my first dance instructor, I had known her since I was 2 months old. She had me in the nursery. She knew me my whole life. So when I joined the dance team, she was over it. I couldn't wait to join the dance team, by the way. Like, I'm like, I can't wait to finally be old enough to be a part. And then when I finally get to be a part, she's over the dance team for maybe a few months. And then she had to leave. She had to be sat down because of her involvement with someone else in leadership, her affair with someone in leadership. I didn't understand. My first response to it was, what's going to happen to him? Like, okay, this
So
is
he
happening.
was still there. He was still
Oh, yeah.
there.
When I said it, I was standing in the foyer on her last Sunday. I still remember what she had on. I'm standing there and she's, oh, yeah, it's my last Sunday, da 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 da. I look up at the screen and he up there, doing whatever. And I'm like, so what's going to happen to him? What's happening here? I see that yes, what you both engaged in was wrong. Why are you taking the brunt? Why do you have to leave? And you were just over a dance team. He has more authority here than you do. And I'm 12 years old. And that was my first introduction to, wait a minute, what's going on here? And then I'm just like, okay, we just keep it moving.
So approximately how the person that was not forced to leave and sounds like they had, a more front facing important role in leadership within that organization. Um, how long was he there after that happened? I mean, approximately.
I mean, I was 12. He probably didn't leave until about 2008 or 9. So, I mean,
So
almost
six,
years.
6 or 7 years after the
Yeah,
fact.
there for after it had happened. He was there for years. He continued because at the time where his status was not where it ended up being. I mean, his star continued to rise in that place. He
Gotcha.
continued to have more responsibilities. He continued to have more blessings and become an even greater person. It continued to just puff up and puff up. So
To your knowledge, how many people in the organization were aware of what actually had transpired and the fact that the dance instructor was gone and he was allowed to stay?
I cannot tell you how. You want a number? Like
Well,
how
I mean,
many? A
I guess
lot.
what I'm looking for is people that were there at that time that are listening to this. Are they going to know who you're talking about? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
it was more common knowledge than just you knew because you
Yeah.
were friends with Ashton or
No.
whatever.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
In speaking of that, because this person was there for several more years, the male, um were there any other like inappropriate encounters from him during that time frame that you know of before he
I
left?
it would be hearsay. It would just be nothing but what I've heard about him
Okay.
nonstop. It's
Okay.
never. I don't know any female other than her. I probably do, but I didn't know anyone that was involved with him. But all I heard was that that's what he did. He got around and that he slept around, and he was just known for that. That's what
Well, and we
everybody.
know, I mean, I know from the HR standpoint that nothing happens in that place to the point of someone that is on the front line changing their hairdo without Rodney Lee Parsley giving approval that it's going to happen. So the likelihood that he was aware of these transgressions from this person and maybe other people as well was very high, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, wow. Well, since we're on that topic, were you aware during your time there, and not hearsay, but because it was a real situation, were you aware of anyone else in leadership there being involved in inappropriate relationships?
Yes, they were involved with me. Some of them, the inappropriate relationship. So it wouldn't be hearsay. It would be firsthand experience.
Okay. Um, do you want to I guess I did have a question. I didn't know it was gonna kind of get there at this point, but do you want to talk about those experiences and the way that, I had it written as one of my questions was, were you ever involved in an inappropriate situation, and what was that like? Were you consenting, not consenting? Um, do you feel like you and other people were preyed upon while you were there? So I guess that's a lot of questions, but kind of answer it how you feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's a good way to state it. Did you ever feel preyed upon? Because that's exactly what it was. And it's not just males, not with me. There were no females, but I know females do this behavior too. Just because I'm referring to males in my situation, what I'm trying to expose is a spirit that anybody can have. Anybody can prey on you, anybody can be a predator. And but in my situation, it was two male staff members there that preyed upon me. Um, I was 17. I already knew him. He had been there for years. We kind of had formed a big brother, little sister relationship with each other. It never got inappropriate. I mean, I think I met him when I was about 13 or 14. So I was really, really young. But um, when I was 17, we exchanged numbers, and that's when things turned. He started talking to me. He started asking me
How old was
inappropriate.
he? Not to interrupt you, but how old was he? 25 and you
25.
were 7? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So he started to ask me inappropriate questions, and things that any have I ever done anything? Am I a virgin? What do I like? Kind of. And I remember feeling very uncomfortable because we had never talked about even liking each other or there being an attraction. I didn't even know that he was attracted to me. And I surely wasn't attracted to him. That wasn't the relationship. But I felt it taking a turn. And then I thought, well, he just, we're just talking. He just wants to confide in me. And his position there definitely played a role in my compliance with whatever he asked somehow. And I'm sure other people have felt that way, even though you're outside of that place. But when a person from that place with some kind of authority or that's on the platform or whatever calls you or texts you, you feel the same urgency, even if it's inappropriate. No different than if it would be come down front, let me lay hands on you. You're going to do it. Well, what if it's something inappropriate? The same, you're wired the same. You listen, you obey, you respond. So even though I felt so many red flags and uncomfortable, I continued to engage in these text messages. They went on for about 9 months, back and forth of just now. At this time, there were no picture phones. That's like telling on myself how old I am, but that's it was just text. You could just text and call. But I'm sure if it would have been, that probably would have been a part of our relationship too. And then we would have gone into some kiddie porn because I was underage. But thankfully, we didn't go there. So, anyways, I had started engaging in text with him, and then he started to kind of pressure me and push me to want to sleep with him and to want to hook up. And I just wasn't ready for that. During that time, he would tell me what he wanted me to wear to church. It was important that I wore a pencil skirt. he said, because he wanted me in between service or, like at a down part of service to sneak in the back so like he could have easy access if I wear a pencil skirt with no underwear. And I would never listen. I'm 17 years old. I would show up and I remember feeling like I'm wearing pants today. Like, wow, I am so defiant. I am so rebellious. Like he asked me to put on a pencil skirt and to dress it, and I'm showing up in pants, like the biggest F you to him. I'm thinking that like, and also afraid like he's going to get mad. He never got mad. Like was never bothered because I'm sure maybe somebody else wore one that day. So he wasn't worried about me, but
You think he
I
was preying on more people than just
Oh,
you?
I know, because he would tell me like, "Oh, I'm texting like 5 different girls in the service right now, and they don't even know it. They're all sitting in the same section, and they don't even know it that I'm texting all of them." And he's telling me he also there was lots of grooming. Part of the grooming was to trauma dump on me about what everybody else is doing. And I won't repeat what he said because I don't know if any of what he told me was true, but he wanted to make sure I understood how bad everybody else is and how much sin and sex, all these people that I've looked up to all my life, what's going on at the Parsley house and all this stuff. I had never been to their house before. I'm like, oh, okay, he's telling me all this. Now that I'm older and look back, I know he was trying to be like, so what we're doing is okay because they're doing a bunch of stuff. So you don't worry about this. We're still going to be good because that's now he didn't say it that way, but I know that was a part of the grooming. That was just as traumatizing as engaging in the relationship with him. The information he told me, the things he told me about people to this day make me sick. I don't know why, but that was very, very traumatizing, hearing what everybody else had going on and what he had going on with them. He would tell me he was engaged in these behaviors with all of these people. And it was, in a way, did make me feel like, oh, okay, so everybody's doing this. Like, so this is
So
what
did
everybody
you
does.
I know that there was another situation, but with that situation, any specifically, and then you can tell me about the other situation. I just want to kind of have a clarification between the two. In this situation, did you tell anyone that this was going on, or did anyone have any suspicions? And if they did, how do you know that they had suspicions about it?
I did. I confided in. He was no longer a youth leader. He had moved away, but he grew up at the church there, and he was kind of like a big brother to me. He had moved and gotten married and started youth pastoring somewhere else, and I confided in him and his wife about what was going on because things had gotten to a very, very toxic, bad point with us. And I reached out to him. At the time, I wanted it to be confident. Like I didn't want him to tell anyone. Like I came to
Yeah.
him in confidence and I didn't want, and he did. He went and told a few other elders. I had an elder's wife call me regarding it, and I knew it came from him. And I was mad at them. I got
For telling.
angry. Yes, because
Okay.
I'm like, in
So
my moment
breaking
of
your confidence. Okay.
Yes, in my moment of weakness, I confided in you and told you that this stuff is going on. But my biggest thing was now you're going to get him mad at me. That was always my fear. Don't make them mad at me. He's going to be mad that I told. I was so afraid. I didn't really care if we continued going on, but I didn't want him angry at me. That mattered. And I felt like he was going to be. But once it got to that point, I deny, but the damage was done. I had already said that we did. It had already reached the point that it reached. So now we're in a meeting,
And
and
who was in the meeting?
I'm 17 years old. I'm singing on the front line in my youth group that night, and after we're done with service, my youth pastors at the time that who I was living with and working with at the time, but they were like, after service, you're going to have a meeting and we all talk. I wasn't really sure what it was about. They took me back somewhere I had never been, all the way back in like the quarters and in some meeting room. I haven't been in that room since I was in it. And it was, I won't say the names, but the 25-year-old staff member that I'm referring to that I was engaged in an appropriate relationship with, another staff member, my youth pastor, an elder, and Rod. And the meeting, they asked me, have you ever engaged in inappropriate behavior with this man? Have you ever kissed him? Have you ever? These are the questions. Not, she's 17. Who
Right.
cares?
And I heard you say that you were 17 and you were in there. Was your mom there? Was your mom or parent aware of this happening?
That's what's funny. You know, my mom started going to church there in 85 and faithfully tithed, faithfully signed the envelopes. You know her phone number. You know every house she's lived in. You know her information. You know how to, you see her every Sunday. She's on this platform every week. No one has said anything to her. No one is like, you should probably be in here with Carol as support. Outside of my mom, because I know how things work, they're worried about their ministry. They're not worried about people's lives. So even if you would have told my youth pastor's wife to come and sit, even if Joni would have been in there, even if Ashton would have been in the room, another female in the room, another woman, I'm already being abused by a man significantly older than me. Now you put me in a room with this man, his bosses, my authority, and it's all men. And I'm sitting here by myself. And I
Hmm.
felt, I'm, after it all happened, that in itself was traumatizing. I had to cry about that. Like, you were in a room alone with a bunch of men and you were 17. Now I'm 33. If I knew a 17-year-old girl in a situation, I'm not coming at it like asking her questions. I'm wrapping my arms around her because she can't give consent yet. She's not old enough to. We're not having some conversation and discussion. There was no love. There was no, you know, I was asked these questions. He began, Rod got upset, not at my questions, I think just at the whole thing. And then my my youth pastor told me, leave, let's just go. They stayed though. I don't know what else transpired in the meeting. But then I was so mad at him. I went off on him because I'm like, once again, he's gonna be mad at me. Now we're gonna deal with this, and he's gonna be like, oh, you keep running your mouth like that. And I'm like, oh gosh, he's gonna be angry with me. So my anger for everything that was happening to me, because of course I never got mad at him, never laid a finger on him, never raised my voice to him, not telling him, stop doing these things to me, I don't like this. Now I use my big girl voice, but to my youth pastor, you know, but to the youth leader that I confided in. That's where my anger goes. To the very people trying to help me, trying to do what's best, I took it out on them and attacked them. While I'm doing it, he was just crying because I'm sure he knew it's deeper than this. And I'm just like, how could you? How dare you? You know, and it's just a big mess. But the after the meeting, the message that was given is, I don't want to hear about this anymore. From Rod down, like that was the message. It wasn't, this was wrong, he needs to no longer be on staff, we need to figure out what we're going to do, this whole situation. When I was leaving the meeting, they started questioning him, and I overheard one of the questions, and it was regarding him coming to the dorms and sneaking girls in. And I overheard that, and I'm like, you know, because I was engaging in relations with him. So I'm like, oh, he's engaging in other things. So I know I was not the only female that they maybe had meetings with, that they had issues with. I don't know how else they handled it with him, but he continued to do what he did there. He continued to get paid to do
That's what I
it.
was going to ask. So he continued to
Yes.
work there after
Yeah,
that happened.
he did.
Okay.
He did. He continued to, and it was very hard to be in a church where your abuser's there, they're elevated, they have a duty. And I mean, even even like my mom being close with them, there's only one place, it'll only be church where you see your mom hugging somebody that's abusing you. You know, it's only there where that's like, you know, this is okay, everything's all right. Some people may know, but no, we can keep going on with the show, and they're okay. And knowing that there's multiple, I'm not the only one. Before me, I had heard of a girl, I had heard of a story. The fact that there's always, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's all these rumors, and he was never removed. What if he was removed before he got to me? Then
Right.
I never
Right.
would have went through that. You guys had a red flag. There was somebody. There's always smoke. If you've heard something, handle it now. Deal with it now, because that staff member is going to become a problem for you and your ministry. So instead of protecting them by keeping them, you need to let them go. Who cares what they
Absolutely.
know? Who cares what they, because they're going to continue this behavior. Now look where I'm sitting. Now I'm here because that wasn't stopped. That wasn't handled right when it should have been handled. And that's really how I feel, because I know that I'm not the only one that was groomed by him, that he was talking to, and nothing was done. I need some water.
Yeah.
Girl.
Well, and that's, I mean, I think that that's this is a terrible thing that is starting to be uncovered, is that there were several people in positions of leadership there, elders and other people, that they were aware that things were going on. Now, in some of the situations, they did, let people go depending on the situations. But in other situations, it seems like there were meetings, but the actual victim in the situation was made to feel like they were doing something wrong and they were to blame,
Yeah.
while the perpetrator continued to walk the halls depending on how important their position was while they were there. So
Yes.
did anyone during that time, did you or anyone else make your mom aware?
I told my mom what was going on years later, like the real deal story. She knew that we were friends and that I talked to him. I don't think she really cared for that, but she didn't know the context. And I mean, I never came to, she always thought I'd come to her if I needed her, I'd come to her. I never knew that I wouldn't. I thought I would too. But it's until you're in these positions and you have that, your mind is being controlled and you're being groomed to think new thoughts, think their thoughts. You're thinking the thoughts he wants you to think. You're not thinking, for your, how you used to think. Oh, I'm going to run and tell my mom if anybody puts their hands on me. I can't wait to tell her. No, you don't feel that way. And so she was not aware. He came to her, actually, which was very, that's another level of demonic. But he came to my mom to tell her, this is after the meeting. We've stopped engaging with each other. I haven't spent any time with him at all. And he came to her to tell her, you need to tell your daughter to stop talking about me and to stop telling people stuff about me. So my mom, not knowing any of the weight of any detail, I never told her nothing. My mom said to him, okay, because he started off with, you're a discerning woman, you've got the Holy Ghost, and I know, I don't know what to do with your daughter. You've got to do something with Carol. She's got to shut up. You've got to get her to stop talking about me. And my mom was like, okay, now you've said I'm a discerning woman and all that, and that's great, but you hurt her. So you need to make it right. And she's, at the time, he was getting married, he was engaged. And she said, and if you are going to have any peace and move forward in your life with that marriage, you need to make it right with Carol. And whatever you did to her, that's the point, is that you hurt her. That's what I see. And she said his eyes got all red, and he didn't say anything after that. But when she told me, I'm like, you know what you've done to me. You know what we've engaged in. You knew how old I was. How dare you go to my mom and tell her to tell me to shut up
Mm,
when
wow.
you have done things to me? But as the abuser, you don't want that to get out. You want me to be quiet. You want us to stay bound and to stay in this illusion that you're a good man. And he played off of that. Well, you know who I am. You know, everybody knows who you are. Everybody loves you so much. Even she did at that point. You know, so you use all of that. But my mom knew, no, something here. You must have hurt her. You must have done
Mm,
something. And that was her response. But once she came to me with that, I kind of told her a little bit, but it took years to, then I would tell her a little more. Then, like a few years later, I'd be like, you know what, actually, because I didn't ever want, which when I ended up telling her everything, the first thing she did was apologize to me. Oh, Carol, I failed you. And I'm like, that's why I didn't want to tell you, because I
yeah.
didn't want you to think it was on you. She said, oh, I'm sorry, Carol. I should have been there. I wish I would have known. I wish, no, no, no. I said, no, it was all a part of the plan. You were, she said, oh, so much was going on at the time. I was dealing with this, I was dealing with that. And I'm like, the enemy knew. You were distracted. You were dealing with our family. You had things on your plate. I had just graduated high school. I was working, you know, like you're thinking you can finally kind of like ease up on me. You know, I'm in the church. I live, eat, breathe, and sleep this place. You know, I'm here 3, 4 times a week. So you're thinking she's good. I'll worry about my other kids, the other stuff I have going on. You know, and I'm like, no, mom, if you would have came at me during that time, get away from him, this is wrong, I would have attacked you and we could have lost our what we have. I said, no, I accept your apology, you know, as my mother, but don't feel like you failed me. Don't feel like you let me down or you weren't there for me. You know, everything happens for a reason. But that was a part of why I didn't want to share it with her. But no one in the church ever came to her and told her, you know, I'm praying for
Or
Carol.
tried
I
to
think
protect you, or they were protecting
if anything
themselves.
was ever said about me, it's negative. It was never like, we're worried, she needs help, is she okay? If anything was ever said, it's just, you know, it's nothing but negative things.
And you alluded to the fact that there was also another situation, and I don't know if you were also underage during that time. But did you want to share some about that as well?
Um, this was something that we did not talk about. And now the first situation I spoke on, I have confided in people with it. And, you know, my friends and family are aware. That's been something that I've kind of been working through. This is the one that I've never told anyone. Nobody knows. That's why I didn't even bring it up with you, because I always put it so far back. And I'm like, no, that's never going to be something, you know, that you're going to talk about or you'd ever. And this morning, I felt the Holy Spirit touch that very thing that I took off the table. And I'm like, just like God, He's going to be like, yeah, that thing that you think I'm healing that too. So I want to share, I'll share about it. I was 19, I think. He was actually friends with the other staff member that I was involved with. They're very, very close. And I got involved with him. He's a staff member. He traveled with Pastor. He'd be on his private jet, so he was a little closer to Pastor than the previous staff member that I was talking about. And he was very persuasive. Same type of predator behavior. After services, he'd like wait around for me. He didn't come up to me initially and try to talk to me. He like went through my best friend. He like gave her a note to get, just so many weird behaviors and stuff. Those were red flags that I didn't even notice. But um, once we started to engage in our relationship, he then, I mean, this was after like several months of it. Again, this is another person that it's so weird being there. When you engage in these relationships with people, you're not attracted to them. You don't like them. It's not like, oh, I have a crush on this guy. I'm going to get to know him. We're going to go out on a date. It's like they're convincing you to sleep with them. That's what it's about. They're just trying to get you to have sex with them. They're not trying to get to know you. They're not, that's how I felt. They're not trying to get to know you. They're not trying to date you. They're not trying to marry you. This is about sex and how quick can I get you to agree to do this in some form, even if you don't say yes out loud. Can I get you to do something? And then I'll take it from here. And that's how that transpired, because I'm like, how did we end up already engaged in sexual behavior? I don't know. I blink and here we are. Don't have a crush on you, barely knew you a week before, knew you as this staff member at my church, and now I blink and here we are engaging in this inappropriate behavior that no one was aware of at the time. So as time went on, it started to, let's see, without sharing what he did for a living, what this staff member would also have, there would be other staff members that would come, or other people that would come. They weren't necessarily staff members, but maybe they were coming to fill in a position or to do something because somebody else was out of town. So yeah, I know they were getting paid, but no, they weren't like a World Harvest Church worker, but they're filling in for one. Those people that were all, they were all male, those people that were friends with him, he then would start bringing them around and forcing me to hook up with them. And if I didn't hook up with these guys that I have no idea who they are, barely want to hook up with him. Now, I have no idea who these men are. If I don't do this, he's going to physically put his hands on me. That's my, those are my options. Those are my choices. Or I'm going to get choked. I'm going to get hit, whatever. So go along with this and do what I want. Sometimes it would just be hanging out and like nothing sexual would happen. Sometimes it would just be me and him and they would just be there and nobody would do anything with me. But sometimes he'd always would be like, can try to get a friend to come, try to get, you know, oh, you should bring a friend, you should do, like, just totally just the weirdest behaviors. And all under the guise of, if you don't, then this is what's going to happen. There was one particular night I just didn't want to. I didn't even want to be with him, let alone. And we were on our way to the hotel. Mind you, this hotel is being paid for by the church. You know, his gas, where he goes, where he stays, you know, the church is taking care of everything and they're just providing this for this to be even easier. And we're on our way to the hotel and I can't remember what we were saying, but I know I was putting up, I had an attitude. I wasn't feeling it. I was not in the mood. And he then proceeded to open the side car. We're on the freeway. He opened the car door, my car door, and he said he would push me out if I didn't, you know, get my act right and go along with this entire thing.
Oh my
So,
gosh, Carol. Golly, I'm sorry. I mean,
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. This is not, that's why it's at even my own expense. This is why we don't share, because then you've got to show your hands. My hands are dirty, just like their hands. I'm a product of my environment. I was raised in that environment, in that toxicity. My hands are just as dirty. I'm not coming on here saying my hands are so clean and I don't know what's wrong with them. No, you get dirty when you hang out there. You can't stay clean and be around that. You get dirty too. You get involved too. And are you willing to say, this is what I did for your own healing, and let people say what they want about it? You know, who cares what people think? Because it's what
so
happened to you.
was anyone aware? I mean, did any, did you tell, I mean, I know you didn't tell anyone, but did, did anyone suspect anything when it came to this situation? And if so, you know, who do you think knew, or how do you know if anybody else was aware other than the people that were, I mean, this is like human trafficking.
Yes, that is exactly what it is. Um, Another staff member that was friends with him, he was a mutual friend of both of ours. he knew what was going on, and he had came to me because the staff member that I was engaging with was kind of trying to sell me to him. Like, oh, you ever been with Carol before? Oh, you should try it. You should try her. And so he came to me like, hey, like I know y'all been messing around, just you two. Like I know that's going on. But he came to me and was like, when he told me, I remember being so embarrassed. I was so embarrassed. And he was like, no, I told him, like, Carol's my friend. What are y'all doing? What do you mean, try her? That's my friend. Like, what do y'all got going on? And I didn't go into detail with him about it, but I just was like, oh, I don't know. I just shrugged it off. But I remember feeling very ashamed, very embarrassed, and also like, wow, I think this person is a friend. Like that's what a friend looks like. Not somebody that's going along with everything, but somebody that's like, what's going on? Like actually asking me, what are you doing engaged in this? Like, are you
Yeah.
consciously awake and consenting to this? And those are good questions because was I? No, I felt like if I didn't do it, there would be hell to pay.
Well, you were being abused at the very least. And based on how the other encounter went when you had that meeting, I'm sure that played a part in not feeling like you could trust anyone to go and say that
Yes, that's a big thing.
this was happening and you need some help. And because at least in that other situation, it was you were unprotected, you didn't have anyone there to be a sounding board for you, and be a protector for you. And what happens if you do say something? Is it all going to get turned around that you're the one to blame and not all of these other people? So,
Yeah.
was there anyone else in
Yeah.
leadership that
Mhm.
made advances towards you?
Lots of people. I that's a good question because I never thought about like trying to put faces to all of them. But yeah, there were lots of times that kind of happened. I think people were just kind of trying to see like I'm going to make this joke or I'm going to do this to see how far I can go. There was a time when I was doing the production for Master's Welcome in 2017 and it was in a rehearsal, pastor was in there. But it was kind of the part of a rehearsal where everyone was just hanging out. We weren't really doing anything in that moment. Maybe we were taking a break. And I went up to he was sitting on the front row where he usually sits in services. And I came up and I sat next to him and he was telling me about a change that they were going to make at the end of the production and how it was his idea. He was so excited about it. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. And like while I was sitting there, his hand was on my leg and his hand was going up, back. It was going back and forth, just stroking my leg. Now, I mean, we're in front of people. I felt uncomfortable. I don't know what his motive was, but I felt very uncomfortable. And that's how I have felt many times.
Like going up and down.
Yes, like
I'm
where
still
my
stuck
knee
back
is,
at him. Had he
just
ever done
stroking.
that before?
He's very affectionate. No, he'd never done that exact affectionate move, but there are lots of ways of that he will when he's in that mood, if he feels friendly and not, or whatever, then but I consider it flirting. And I remember thinking in that moment, because I grown up there and I never had a relationship with him or friendship or anything like that. So now I'm like, well, I'm an adult. I was about 27 at the time. Like I'm an adult now, why do I feel like as a grown woman, like I'm flirting? Like there is a flirting chemistry here. And I don't get it. Cause I'm like, I'm not, I had to question myself, like, are you attracted to him? What's going on here? Because all of a sudden in my adult, that's when the wheels started to turn, where I started to feel like how other leaders have made me feel at times, just uncomfortable. Now, I feel intuitively that those are their little ways of that an abuser will do to see how far they can go without you saying anything. How far
Yeah,
can I
that's
go?
right.
How much can I do? And that is very much, a part of that place. And I didn't when you asked if anyone else had known about the last
Yeah.
situation, the last
Mhm.
staff member, there were leaders in the church. There were two prominent leaders that did. I don't know how they found out, but it wasn't the things that were transpiring in the hotels and all of that. It was just that me and him were engaging in some form of a relationship. And they came to him because, of course, he's going to tell me after the fact. They came to him and had a meeting, and they were like, whatever's going on is whatever's going on. But if he hears about it, he, as in Rod Parsley, if Pastor hears about this, you don't want that to happen. So you better make sure, not stop what you're doing, not this is wrong, just make sure that you keep this tight, sealed tight, and it doesn't reach further than where it's gotten. Because if he gets a hold of it, you're going to have problems here. And so he told me that the same
He
leaders
said, but
that
you weren't in that meeting, so you
no,
don't
no, no,
know
no. Right, no,
exactly
no, no. Right after it happened,
what was
he
said.
called me and told me,
Yeah.
and ironically, that was a Sunday evening. I came into service before the service started, and that same leader that I knew already had a conversation with him this afternoon. He came up to me and was like, "I need to talk to you after service. Make sure you come and meet with me." And I knew it was going to be about that because I already knew he talked to him. So I was just like, okay, well, service ended and like he came up to us, this leader, he said bye. He gave us hug. He gave me and my best friend a hug. And I was like, well, we were going to stay and have some meeting, but I don't know if he chose not to have it. I don't know what happened, but they never said anything to me regarding him. It didn't go further than just what he told me they said. So I never I even had asked, because this happened before I became close with Ashton. When I got close with Ashton, I said, and I brought up that situation, I said, you never heard nothing about me and this person. She was like, no. I was like, you didn't know I was engaging in this stuff. Like, you didn't know. And she swore, now, I don't know if she was being truthful, but she was like, girl, I had no idea. You're just now telling me that that was going on. So maybe it didn't ever reach the
Yeah.
Parsleys, and but there were leaders that knew.
Well, she had her own things to worry about, which we know for a fact. But I mean, this is so there's this long, or this laundry list, at least at this point that you and I are discussing, that there was an issue when you were like 12, that it was a dance instructor and somebody in leadership. Then there is this other situation that they know about. You're a child, this other person is an adult, they don't address it, everybody is just going about their time there. And then you have this other situation, and at least in this one, you're not sure if the Parsleys are aware of it or Rod is aware of it or not, but leadership is aware of it. They don't tell you to really quit. They're just saying be careful because people are noticing things, or I'm paraphrasing. So
Yeah.
so then you find yourself at 27, so now we're talking about more chronological here. You find yourself at 27, you're doing this master's welcome. This situation presents itself where you're in the tabernacle. There are people around. I don't know if they're looking at you, but there are people around. Rod is rubbing your leg. You're trying to figure out if you guys are flirting with each other or if you're flirting with him. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is there anyone to your knowledge that is seeing and noticing that this is going on?
The guy that I was dating at the time, he was sitting a few pews. He was a part of the production as well. He was sitting a few pews behind us, and I could tell he was just like not moving, just
He was
watching.
watching what
And
was
when it was
happening to
over,
his girlfriend, by
yeah,
the way.
when it after that rehearsal, like we talked that night, and he said it. He was just like, "Oh, I saw y'all flirting. You were flirting with him, and I saw that. Like that was weird. Like that was just." And I
It
remember,
is weird. I mean, it's weird just sitting here hearing about it. But I mean, what's more strange is that there, and I relate it back because I talked about in one of the episodes where there was always like a spirit, not of just oppression, but there was like a spirit, like a hypersexual spirit. I mean, I don't, we call it Jezebel spirit, because they use that term all the time, that, oh, you got the Jezebel spirit if you didn't want to, do what they wanted you to do, or you were being defiant, or there were situations, sexual situations. Um, but it seems very prevalent the more people that are reaching out, that there were things like this that were happening. And we've, just started scratching the surface with what was known about Ashton. But I mean, in your opinion, based on the amount of time that you spent there, would you agree that there was like this culture of like everything being hypersexual there?
100%, 100%,
I
definitely.
mean, that's what it seems
Especially,
like to me.
yeah,
Again, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but that's
especially
even,
in the
and this is not including conversations that people are having with me outside of you, but yeah.
yeah, especially in the school. Like once I started to attend Harvest Prep and get and have more friends from there, that is when that's when my sexual activity started, was once I started going to Harvest Prep, because everybody was having
You were
sex with each
homeschooled
other.
before that, right?
I was
Homeschooled? Okay.
so, but everyone was drinking, everyone was having sex, and it was just like I felt very peer pressured into it. I didn't want to lose my virginity and have sex, but I just went along with it, if that makes sense. Like it wasn't like a yes, I have this desire. It wasn't me, it was everybody else. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess everybody else. And it's not different than how you may feel in a service. You may not have the desire to jump up and shout and go crazy, but if everyone else is doing it, you feel like, oh, I supposed to have this too? Is this normal? You'll feel abnormal for not sinning there. Like you'll feel like
You
in
feel like you
order
have
to
to
get in,
conform. Yeah,
yeah,
you
in order
conform
to
to
get
the
in, it's like,
environment.
and that is very much the environment there. It is just in Valor as well. There were lots of people that I was friends with, especially the guys in the dorms. Like some of the straight guys that I was friends with would tell me, like, I can't even go to the bathroom at night. They're having, homosexual sex in the stalls, in the showers. I can't go anywhere. And, for a straight man, they're like, I don't want to open the door and just see two guys having sex. I've never even seen it before. But and that's just like normal. But again, I remember even
It's
thinking at that,
normal.
yeah. And I remember thinking at that time, like, my only thing wasn't, why is this happening? It was like, where is this coming from? Why is
Yeah.
everybody so like, I mean, and it's swinging every which way you can go, doing anything, doesn't matter what age you are, smoking, drinking, like all of it's just so normal. Why is it running rampant like that? And I really believe that it is a stronghold. I believe that there are people that probably, even the staff members that I was involved with, I believe that if they weren't there, they would have never done that behavior with anyone. And I'll believe that till the end. I believe that the behaviors that happen are because we're there. It's not like, well, if he would have been that same staff member at another church, he would have done the same thing. No, I believe that it's because of the stronghold in the Parsley family, their family alone. That stronghold has seeped into the whole ministry. So whoever's got a hold of pastor's dad, whatever had a hold of him, whatever had a hold of his mom, whatever had a hold of their parents, whatever stronghold was in their life, that is what it is. And I have said, they have said, the or pastors always said, the atmosphere of expectancy is the breeding ground of miracles. And I'm like, that place is like the atmosphere of toxicity. Like that's all. And it just breeds more fear. It's the
Oh, and
grounds
more
there is
toxicity. Yeah,
yes, and
because
more
these
and more
people are
toxicity.
leaving, and I'm trying not to jump in, Carol, but these
Okay.
people that come there to go to college to learn how to be pastors, or they come there to get some training, these people, and we don't know, if we're talking about the same people or not, but these people are going off and starting their own ministries and maybe perpetuating the same behaviors that
Yes.
they've learned there, or the people that have not been exposed to any other churches or leadership than there. And you're going to tell me that, I mean, I know you're not telling me, but I mean, I am, I
Yeah.
keep saying I'm losing the compassion that I had, because I kept wondering, why haven't they sued me yet for the stuff that I've said and the stuff that I have, and I'm grateful that they haven't, but why haven't they come at me harder than, because that's what that's what people are telling me to expect. And I know these people a little bit,
Mhm.
and I think it's because that's child's play compared to not only what was happening, but just even what you're saying. That's
Yeah.
nothing compared to this.
Yeah.
And
Because
maybe that's
no
why
one's
I'm
doing it.
losing the compassion,
Mhm.
because you start messing with kids. I mean, not that it's not bad enough what was happening, Carol. Believe me, I'm not saying that, but you start messing with kids, and I feel a hyper vigilance to
Yeah.
protect them and protect anybody else that this could happen to. So do you
Yeah.
think um do you believe that there were child predators within the organization while you were there?
Yes. Yes, I do. I do believe
And like
that.
in positions of power too?
Mhm. Yes, very the highest position outside of being him, like is somebody working with him, close to him, that stands by his side. Like that's pretty much the highest, or somebody that's leading things on the platform. Like those are the two highest positions that you can have. And people with those positions I knew were engaging in with underage students.
Oh, it's worse than I thought. Lord Jesus. Oh, help us. Oh my gosh. In your opinion, because obviously I mean, it's hard to even make sense of any of this, but why I'm just trying to figure out the right way of saying this. Do you think that Rod was aware? And in your opinion, why would why would anybody with a ministry like a mega ministry, why would they protect people like this?
I definitely think that he was aware. Uh, I know that he was about one in particular because he was so upset about what had come out that they were doing, and he went on a rampage about it. So I know that he was fully aware that that person was not only engaging in inappropriate behavior, but it's was homosexual behavior that he totally condemns on the platform and says that it's wrong. And he knows that people very close to him that may run his bathwater are engaging in this behavior with people there, with students there, fully aware of it. And your response is to just be like, this doesn't need to be happening. Instead of that person needs no crap, it doesn't need to be happening. Get that person out of here that's doing it. My belief in why he doesn't remove them was one of the people I'm referring to. It's not just one, but one of the people I'm referring to this day still will be by his side to this day. You're fully aware of that person's behavior, fully aware of what they've done, and they're never removed when you know. And to me, I think the only reason they don't is because that person knows something about him. That's how this thing works. That's why nobody talks, because it's like I could not talk, because then it's like, well, I don't want to sit here and say I got human trafficked. I don't want to sit here and say that's why people don't talk. I can't say what happened, what I saw pastor do, because I was right there. And that's how they'll get you. They get you as dirty as they are. So everybody stays dirty and nobody gets healed. Nobody gets clean. Nothing new happens. Nothing, changes. And it's only because I believe that staff member knows something about pastor, and pastor doesn't want to set him or them or whatever out on their butt, and they're disgruntled and they're mad that he put them out, and then they go and tell what they know, because what they have is worse than what they've done on the grounds. What they have on him is worse. I could be wrong about that, but that's just what I believe, because it seemed like the way that certain people got put out and certain people didn't. I think the people that were sat down for behaviors are people that just weren't close with the Parsleys. You got to be close with them to get your stuff covered, because your stuff will be their stuff. You got to make your sin their sin. So if you're going to sin, you better do it with them. You better make sure that it's not somewhere else, because if you do it too far out of that little covering, you could get kicked out, you could get fired, you could get treated like, whatever. But if you're doing those behaviors with them, then it's okay. It's just
I
like,
mean, it's just like, how can you even believe what you're preaching? You know what I'm saying? Like, how can you go up there and believe what you're preaching and then allow, because even if it's not them specifically doing the behavior, they're complicit, and they're just as guilty, if not more guilty, for allowing it to happen and keeping these people around and sending these people out and giving his blessing for these people's ministries, knowing that they had these issues at World Harvest and they could have done something about it, but they just keep covering it up. I mean,
yeah, because they have to cover themselves up. So everybody gets covered. Their blanket reaches across, but underneath they're shriveled up and not healing. I'm trying to rip that blanket off today. I'm trying to rip off of myself too. We don't need to hide anymore, because you're nothing hidden can be healed. So you keep covering and you keep covering, it's going to keep happening and keep happening. Nothing will change. It's time for change.
absolutely. Well, yeah, and we haven't even, I still have a ton more questions. I
Yeah,
mean, do you need to take like a break or anything after you're okay?
I'm okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so not that we haven't said enough in just on this topic alone, but Did do you ever know of Ashton or Rod engaging in any kind of predatory behavior?
Um, her for sure. I know.
Okay. Do you care to
With
share?
I know that she was engaging with a Harvest Prep student, and she had asked my boss, which I saw the message, so it's not hearsay because I was right there with her when she's texting her, and we both were kind of freaking out because she's like, I hope they don't pray. She wanted her to pray that they didn't find anything incriminating on her phone regarding her relationship with this underage boy.
How old
And
was
we were
she?
She had to be in her late 20s, maybe 27 or
And
28,
she
maybe.
was engaging with a boy that was
Yes.
that was in
He was
Harvest
a
Prep.
high school student. Yes. He was a Harvest Prep student. They spent a lot of time together. He'd be in her office a lot. She'd buy him stuff. And there was a whole rapport there. We knew her pattern. We knew if she's buying you stuff or buying your sister stuff or doing, there's other things going on. So that was to me very predator, very grooming, with the gift giving and the, oh, come back here and have lunch, and oh, I'll take you home and you can ride with me. And It's all inappropriate. And Rod was
Did
fully
anyone
aware
know
of all
about
of
that, to
Yes.
your
Mhm.
knowledge? They,
Yes. Multiple people were aware of that. Mhm. And of what, even when she was being under investigation, I'm assuming Child Protective
oh,
Services.
they
Yeah,
investigated her.
why that's why she said, please pray that they don't find anything. And they were doing an investigation on her phone and stuff. And she was saying, please pray that they don't find anything incriminating on me. And we were like, well, there shouldn't be. Why should we pray that they don't? Because you shouldn't, have it. That me and my boss were like, what? Like, but
Yeah.
we just let it go, But yeah, it was that level of, so I don't know how far down it went. I knew that they were not supposed to be in contact with the family that was this was alleged that happened because someone else made a call. Evidently, the boy's girlfriend, who is also a high school student, the proper age to be involved with him, saw on his phone some inappropriate messages that she was sending him. She then made the call. So that's how got the whole investigation going. And so obviously they're not to be involved with the family or have any cahoots. They were involved every day because my boss was working for Rod at the time, and she's preparing lunch for them because they're all in the room where they're not supposed to be talking, and they're all in there to me, making sure that they smooth this over, don't press charges because I know they found something because the girl found something. The call wouldn't have been made if there wasn't something on the phone. So I believe that in those meetings, they were probably trying to get them to smooth things over, maybe giving them some money or whatever, however it goes, to make sure that this whole thing doesn't get out of hand.
Gosh, I mean, it's just like one thing after another, and you keep seeing the same behaviors just floating around, and it being, I mean, obviously, if they're having lunch with these people, they were all aware of it, and we don't really know what came of it, but we know that it doesn't appear that anybody was prosecuted or anything like that. Do you know, do you, because we're not sharing, but do you know if they're still involved with this family, that it would have, the son would have been underage?
I think so. I mean, I'm so out of it there, but as far
Okay,
as I
you're just not
know, there
aware.
are, yeah, I'm
Okay.
pretty sure that there's that. I think he's still, the family, I think the dad still works there as far as I know, that they're still, they'll be lifelong friends after,
Well,
now
they're
it's
like
just
you said, if your hands are dirty too,
that's
then
when you
you're
get loyal.
going, yeah.
Loyalty is
Um,
made there.
I don't want to. I don't want to spend so much time on this, but unfortunately, it's kind of a necessary evil at this point because of your experiences there. And again, I know I keep saying it, but the fact that you're um courageous enough to even speak about this stuff is it has to be God, saying that it's finally time. Did anyone ever confide in you about any inappropriate situations, whether they were a child and there was a situation, or that there were any claims of like molestation or incest or anything like that?
Yes. Well, during the time that I was there, I had a friend, like she was my childhood friend. She started going to the school because we were both homeschooled, and then she started going to Harvest Prep. And ironically, the same person that she confided in me with, I had an altercation with him. We were in the Hall of Faith and we were joking around, and he had grabbed a hold of my arm and he wouldn't let it go. and he started squeezing on it, and he left a bruise, and I had gone to an elder about it. He also, in a service, had we one of my friends had like her little nephew, and he had some like children's books. He was sitting behind us, and I don't know, him and her kind of got into it a little bit, and he took the children's book in the middle of the service and smacked the living crap out of my friend with the book. And now, of course, we thought it was hilarious, like, because we're childish and we don't understand the context of things. But she still told her mom. Her mom went to elders about it. I was in a service. One of the leaders stopped the service and called him forward and said that he had a spirit of death on him and that they needed to pray and lay their hands on him. And those were just the three things that stuck out: him doing what he did to me, hitting my friend, and then that leader stopping the service because he had a spirit of death on him. Well, my childhood friend confided in me that he had raped her while they were both at Harvest Prep. Now, he ended up getting kicked out of Harvest Prep and everything after that. I don't know if there was any actual charges or that the police got involved, but he was kicked out. I just remember being so mad when she told me, because I'm like, not the person that I told an elder about. My friend told an elder about. This man stopped a service to say he had not this person. Now he done raped somebody, and it was my friend. I'm like, so we're not doing anything, basically. Like, when you go to tell an elder, nothing is getting done.
Mhm.
They're too worried about what they don't need to be worried about. They're not being Jesus. They're trying to run a business. And Jesus runs to the victims and those in need. He's not trying to figure out what's the best way to do this so I can keep this thing going. Who cares if it all comes down? You run to the one in need. And so that was a situation. So she never like reached, that happened, in real time, she told me. But after I had left the church, and I had made like a public on my social, like made it public. Everyone knew that I was gone, and it was really bad. I was in a very bad place in my life. I was angry, and just so much was going on. Someone had reached out to me that I went to Next Harvest with. That was the youth group. He told me that while he was at camp, this would have been, I'm trying to think, the year 2010, I believe, would have been the summer camp that we all went to. I sang at that camp. He told me that while he was there, we didn't have a youth pastor at the time. They had someone filling in who was on staff, who was one of like who worked with pastor. He was running the camp. Well, he told me that he and another one of the leaders, well, several of the leaders were engaging in like bullying him and physically and verbally abusing him, and then he was raping him. And at the time, he was 15 years old. So he had confided in me about that. And he was one of the same people that I knew, Rod knew, was involved with Valor students. So when I hear that nothing was done and now we're going younger, we're talking Valor students, that's still wrong because you're on staff and they're college students. But now we're going even younger to 15 years old. And he was just a boy at camp. So while all these things are going on, that's also going on. So when he reached out to me,
Did this boy, I'm sorry not to, I mean, I'm just I mean, my almost speechless. I mean, just such a feeling of helplessness and how can this be? How can this be happening? Did that boy, to your knowledge, did he ever confide in anyone else? And did you feel, I mean, did you feel compelled to tell anybody, or did you think, well, nothing's going to be done anyways because of everything that I know that's happened up until this point?
as far as I know, he did not confide in anyone else about it. All I know is that he told me where I was at the time. I had just left the church. I just moved from Ohio, and I was very angry. So my response to it was I like messaged the guy, the staff member. I like started commenting on his posts. He was like newly engaged at the time. I started commenting on her stuff. Like, I hope you know, I hope you know, like, which is totally, that's not of God. God wasn't prompting me to do that. That was my own human emotions. I was in a bad place. So that's how I chose to deal with it, was just go off on him and on anybody that's ever done anything that I knew of to a kid. Like that day, it was just like, that was my triggered response, was like, well, I'm just going to go to him and be like, you ain't like, I can't believe you did that. How could you do that to that boy? And now that's not how we fight. That's not the way that the spirit realm works. You don't fight your battles that way. You just tell the truth. You don't attack. You don't come for people. You don't, out of a triggered state. You just tell the truth. And in your truth, you are made free when you speak the truth. The truth will literally make you free. That's all I have to do. But
Absolutely. So why, I mean, we've talked about like super heavy stuff, and I think we've been talking for maybe 2 hours now or something. Um, so what was the situation that actually, or was there a situation that actually caused you to leave the church? Had you scaled back going before you actually left? Was anyone concerned about you leaving? You know, did the Parsleys reach out to you and ask why you didn't want to go to church anymore? I mean, was there anything like that, since you brought up the fact that you had left?
it was a funny thing, because when I started to back up further from going to the church and the ministry is when I got closer and closer with them privately. So those things were
The
happening at the,
Parsleys, you mean?
yes, I got closer.
Okay, when you were pulling away from the church, you were actually getting
Mhm.
closer to the Parsleys.
Yes. And
Okay.
those things were happening simultaneously. And it was very weird for me. Um, and it was hard. It's just traumatizing in general to be in that room with all those people and all these things that have happened. And you've got to go along with the show. And like, there is a schism that happens in the brain where the victim then interprets that as God's forgiveness. So when I would be in services with predators, abusers, with my predators and abusers, I then am like, forgiveness. And that's what we have to be careful of. Yes, everyone needs forgiveness, but as a victim, you haven't even realized that you need to be forgiven, that you need healing. You're so worried about, well, I'll forgive them for what they did to me, instead of realizing you yourself need to be saved, need to be forgiven too, and need to be healed. And you don't need to quickly just brush aside someone else's wrong to you. So it's a very traumatizing atmosphere. But being there, I think that made it hard. And there was one particular service when I officially was like, I'm pretty sure I will never be back here. It was a Wednesday night, and the it was a crazy type of service. The music was going, and at some point Ashton got up on the platform and she took the microphone and she said, if you've ever been molested, if you've ever been raped, if anything's ever happened to you, the Holy Spirit says, get over it.
You got to let it go. Yes. You got to, we say it all the time, let go and let God. Yeah. Let go and let God. Some of you need to say out loud, I forgive blank. Right, I forgive my mom. I forgive my dead granddad. I forgive my aunt. I forgive my sister. I forgive the person that sexually abused me when I was 8 years old. I forgive that boyfriend that raped me.
And she just started going, now, Pastor, if you're familiar, I know you didn't go to Ward Harvest, God bless you. So you're not familiar with how he gets, but he got up there and he's pushing her on like, yeah, like egging her
Yeah,
on, like,
egging
say
her on.
that, say
Yeah, yeah.
that. And some people were clapping. Now, I wasn't in, there were people down at the altar dancing and stuff already. I wasn't down there. I remember just freezing when she said it. And my best friends at the time are sitting with me, and we were just like not clapping, not doing anything. She can proceeded to go on and on about that. You know, you need to get over it. Who cares? That doesn't give you an excuse. Da, 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 da. You know, she's just. And so a couple of days after that, we were at a mutual friend's birthday party. And she wanted to make sure to come over to us, which in all her ranting and raving with the mic, she could feel and saw that we were not clapping and we were not supporting her and what was going on from that platform. So she was like, hey, like I saw you guys on Wednesday night. Like, I just want to let you know why I said that. And then proceeded to tell us some story about some Valor students that were engaging in inappropriate behavior. And their excuse was that they had been raped or molested. She's like, that's the only reason why, because they were trying to say, and that's why I said it. And now I let it go because, you know, we were at a birthday party or whatever. And I was just like, okay. But within me and myself, I knew then this is not a safe place for me to be. This is not where my spirit is safe, where I'm going to be ministered to, where I'm going to be discipled. They're not making disciples. They're yelling at you, whatever their opinions are, whatever's going on in their ministry. And they'll twist the word of God, and they'll twist whatever they got to twist to make it fit their current little rage or their current little, they'll make a sermon about this, about our conversation. You know, they'll do whatever they can. They'll find the right verse and twist it. And I no longer wanted to be twisted and turned to fit their views because they weren't matching with the word and with what I had experienced and gone through at the hands of their staff members. Don't you tell me to get over it. And I immediately felt that. And what I felt was the blood that Jesus shed was because he knew I was going to go through that. And it was just as much for me as it was for my abuser. He knew my abusers were going to make that choice to abuse me. And he shed his blood. That's how serious this is. And you're telling me that Holy Spirit said, get over it, when he sent his only son because of it, because of predators, because of abuse. That's why he had to die. That's not the only reason. I'm just saying, using that as a metaphor, that's one of the reasons why Jesus knew I'm going to have to die and shed my blood over everybody and over everything. So no, we don't need to get over it. We need to get counseling. We need to make sure our mental health is okay. We need to get healing. This isn't something to just get over. So once I felt that I was no longer safe there, I can't be in this room because something's going to come from that platform. And now they'll twist it and say, if it offends you, it applies to you. Well, what if it offends the Holy Spirit? What if you grieve the Holy Spirit? You're trying to say it applies to the Holy Spirit? Oh, well, if the Holy Spirit's mad, you're grieving the Holy Spirit now, you guys. It can only get to so much where everything we say and everything we do is right, is locked in, and you can't argue with it because it's God. Well, I'm not safe here then, because you're going to say some things and you're going to try to represent my Savior that died for me. And you're not representing him because he will never tell me to get over anything. He loves me too much and he wants me just where I am. What if I'm not over it? Yeah, maybe years to come I will be. But if I'm not, he's not going to rush me along my healing process. He's not going to try to fix me or get me right where you are. He wants you. And I knew, no, I don't think I'm safe here. So that's when I stopped going to services. We would pull it up a little bit but I'm continuing to hang out with her weekly. Well, one time we all went out. I don't know what it was for. I feel like it was not just a random night out. There was a reason why we did, but we all had gone out to bar hop with her. And while we were out we were at Walrus, and that was like where we were starting, and we're taking our Patron shots and we're cheersing and we're all talking. It was me and two other girls in Ashton. She proceeds to say, was anybody at church on Sunday? Because I don't know what day this was. It was sometime during the week. Was anybody at church on Sunday? And we were like, nope. She said, well, did anybody watch? I'm like, nope, cheers. Like, let's take another shot. Moving on. We weren't there. And so then she proceeded to go into a story about whatever happened. Well, this is what, and so we talked. But I remember thinking in that moment, is this going to be a problem? Like me not going to church and not now, never heard it from Rod, never heard it from Joni or anybody else, but she made that little comment. And I knew, I wonder if this is going to become a problem because I'm not going to her church. And there was only one other time, because even all the time I spent with the Parsleys, we never talked about church. There was one time that church came up, and it was revolving Masters or regarding Masters Welcome. And he said, you know, you're going to do Masters Welcome. I had done it like 4 or 5 times. I played the lead. I'm like, you know, it's time for somebody else to do it. I'm not the only one here that can act or that God can use. And I said, I'm done. You know, I'm almost 30 years old. I'm done doing it. And he said, no, you're not. Sitting in his kitchen. No, you're not. You're not done. You're going to do it again. I said, yes, I am. I'm done. And then he said, well, you still need to help out. We still want you to come and, you know, be in rehearsals and help out because we need your legacy. And I said, okay.
What about your soul? What about
What
you?
about his? What about me?
What about you as a person?
No, no, that's not up for, that's not on the table. It's just, what can I get you to do for me? And I'm sure he will never forget that conversation because I don't know too many people that have said no to him and then didn't. He's persuasive, he's coercive, he will get you to do whatever. And he wasn't getting me. I'm my mama's daughter. I dare you to try to get me in that zone. Now, I've been manipulated, I've been coerced, I've fallen into that. But when I'm in that state, which is that's what I walk in now all the time, try to get me out of it. Now I'm a new woman in Christ, but I was in that zone with him where it was just like, you're not going to get your way. And I'm sure he remembers that conversation because he ended up being like, okay, well, you know, and he kind of changed his tone and said, you know, and changed it. And I agreed to helping in that way. But other than the play, it was like he never said, you girls should come, you know, on Sunday. Why don't you, even if he would have been like, come and sit with us, I probably would have came, you know, or been, oh, but no, they never cared about our attendance other than the comment that she made when we were all out at the bar. There was never any type of like, oh, you've got to be in church or why weren't you girls at church? No.
Or are you going to church anywhere else? Are you
No,
getting,
agree.
spiritually fed anywhere?
Nope.
Oh, Carol. So I knew this was going to be long, right? And we're like almost 2.5 hours in, and there's still several things that we haven't touched on, that we have some recordings of that,
Yeah.
they're highly, racial comments that were made all the time in your presence, it sounded like. But what I would like to do is, and I know we're still recording, but what I would like to do is for us to end here for now, and
Okay.
then we'll talk off camera on when we can pick things back up, and probably we'll do what will turn into a couple more episodes,
Okay.
because there's just so much. So I'll kind of, I mean, based on what we've talked about today, do you want to add anything that we didn't get to, or do we feel like we've kind of touched on everything, and then the next time that we meet, we'll cover a couple of other areas?
I think that we did touch on everything because now where we're headed is the end when I left, which would be me recording her. That's
Yeah.
what's where we're kind of at. So I think that everything else has pretty much been covered.
Okay. Okay. So I'm, again, I thank you, for having the courage to do this, and to just speak your truth, and not only help yourself heal, but allow God to work in you, and also helping, heal who knows how many people, Carol. I mean, it's just, I just don't even, I can't, it's hard for me to explain what I'm feeling based on our conversation. But, usually I thank everyone for watching and liking and subscribing, but, the atmosphere just of our conversation is, I just want everyone that has been negatively affected by this place, no matter what that looks like, that we're praying for you, and that we love you, and God loves you, and you do not have to be defined by this place and the people there and the things that have happened to you. And that we're praying that you have healing and can move forward, or have already done so. So we'll stop here today, and then we'll talk off camera on getting back together. So I would like to say thank you for tuning in, but this is really, really heavy information, and I encourage you to pray and be in your Bibles, because there's still some more things that we haven't touched on yet. So have a good evening, everyone.